Hi, everybody. My name is Stevie B. I'm a grateful, recovered alcoholic and a member of the Golden Text group of Hollywood, Florida. God bless you guys. How's everybody doing? What an exciting event. I'm expecting an incredible weekend. Are you expecting an incredible weekend? The dinner was exceptional. There was things on that dinner that I had never heard of. Georgia barbecue is a spiritual experience if you've never had it. There was a plate of goulash type of thing that when I dug into it, every bite had another step worked inside it. And I just loved it. What was that called? The stew. Yeah. You have to know it. You have to experience it. You can't explain it. It was that good. I want to thank the committee for asking me to be here. I'm truly honored to be just a small little part of this incredible tradition that you guys have had since, I think, 1982, 1983. What an amazing thing to be part of. And The Rock. Be part of The Rock. To be part of something that is greater than us. Came to believe that a power greater than us could restore us to sanity. And I'm not sure, I don't have a canned speech. If you've ever heard me before and you say, oh, I heard that guy. It's not like that. I asked God to speak through me. We just did the third step prayer outside, my friend Josh. And we asked God, what do you want us to talk about tonight? You know, it was bad before we got here. And there's some new people here tonight, and some of the people that are probably, I'm not sure why you guys chose the back row, but I want you to know that you're off the hook. You never have to pick up another drink or drug ever again, even if you want to. And when that was said to me, yes. I love this. I love this arena. I love this event. There's people here that speak with such a thick accent. It sounds like the movies, and then you got people with hats and people with other. It's so eclectic. I haven't said the word rock since I got sober. I heard it so many times in one weekend. Since they say, what's your drug of choice? The Rock. Where are you going to speak? At The Rock. About rocks. I live in Hollywood, Florida. I'm from New York. And I thought New York was the beginning and the end of the planets. I thought everything centered around my area, which is Long Island, New York. If you've ever seen my cousin Vinny, I'm originally from Brooklyn. I see some people here undercover from Brooklyn. I've noticed your swag. But you're like, I see you and you're like, no, I'm from Decatur. Oh, okay, all right, yeah, you're definitely from Decatur. And in my area, in my blocks, I don't know if that's the same way in Georgia, but in the Northeast, everything is separated by blocks. And on my block, there was big brothers. And what I mean by big brothers, each one of my friends had a group of big brothers, 3 big brothers. It just was like that in my block. And I'm telling you this story so you can understand alcoholism before ever taking the first drink. I want to qualify first. I was an alcoholic before I drank. I didn't drink and become an alcoholic. I was an alcoholic that needed a drink to survive. And I want to give you a little background. If you understand what I just said, the moment I took a first drink, there was like a magic elixir, and I was able to breathe for the first time, maybe in my life. But before then, I had attributed a lot of the problems that I had to my outside circumstances. my internal problem. I had outside circumstances that I would label, well, that's why, bang, 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 X, Y, Z. And in my neighborhood, on my block, there was the Wagamans, 3 brothers. The Cohens, 3 brothers. The Mundingers, 3 brothers. The Woolies, 3 brothers. The Matas, 3 brothers. And the reason I say that is because when you walk to the playground with 3 brothers, you walk with juice. You walk with a gang. You walk with some backup. I had a little chubby sister. You get no backup with a chubby sister. So I immediately felt less than all the other groups that would come to play in the playground. And I felt that I was I was lesser than all the other groups who had muscle, who were shown how to play sports. And I had I didn't know it was called a resentment. I had an attitude. And then one day, a coach was visiting. I went to a big school. Like, this is the size of our auditorium. In Long Island, New York, I went to like a 2,500. I don't know if that's big here, but I'm saying it was big where I was from. A 2,500 person school. My class is 550. This is a big class. Everybody was there in the class. It was a new coach. The coach looked down at the roster and said, Boyarsky. And I said, yes, coach. He says, does your brother play for the Pittsburgh Panthers? Now, that's an easy question if you don't have a brother. It would be an easy answer. But at that moment, I knew everything was about to change for me, and my alcoholic tongue said, yes, coach, he does. And everybody that I had grown up with my whole entire life that knew that I didn't have a brother, they knew I had a stepbrother that was a plumber from Massachusetts. But he certainly didn't play for the Pittsburgh Panthers. But the moment I said it, I was willing to go to any length, and I don't know if you can relate to this, I was willing to go to any length to be from a nothing to be a something. Like, my whole life, I felt so less than, I was willing to go to any length to be at least an almost, let alone a something, a somebody, tell a story, take a drink, use a drug, whatever I needed to do to get to have that feeling that I am not, doesn't matter. And I said, yes, he does, coach. He said, your brother's Jerry Boy. He asked me again. And I said, yes, my brother is Jerry Boyarsky. And from that moment on, I started to pursue knowing who this guy was and having jerseys and newspaper clippings. When he got drafted into the NFL, it was like the greatest day of my life. The moment I took my first drink, I could be anybody I wanted. And I know you know how that feels. And we're not just going to put that down. We're not going to put that magic elixir, the thing that fixed this inside God-sized hole, the thing that instantly made me feel as good as you. My insides finally matched your outsides. When I was 12 years old, I had full-blown alcoholism, and I never had a drink. The toughest kid in my neighborhood, one of the clans that had the brothers, but this was the elite family. They had like the biggest brothers, and this kid had been left back, so he was not only big, but he was bigger than everyone else in my grade. Kevin. And I wanted to hang out with Kevin. Because if I could hang out with Kevin, then I could go to school the next day and tell people I hang out with Kevin. And maybe get some extra juice. And I go and I ring Kevin's doorbell. And back then we would say, would you like come to play with me? I can't say that now because you'd be arrested. So I'm just say, fast forward, would you like to hang out with me? Well, we didn't use the word hang out. We'd say, would you like to play with me? But you don't say that now. And Kevin said, why would I want to hang out with you? I said, because I have guns. Now, understand something. This is Georgia. This is you all have guns. You probably all have guns now. The whole front row is obviously packing. But in Long Island, New York, nobody had guns. But my dad, may God rest his soul, was a Korean War hero. He fought on Pork Chop Hill, and we had guns, and no one else in the neighborhood had guns to play with. And so he came over because we were going to blow stuff up, which is very common for you guys. You obviously are used to blowing stuff up. And so he came over and we were blowing things up, and then he said, I'm leaving. And then I went from somebody, and then all of a sudden, instantaneously, I felt like a nobody, and I said, don't leave. You could shoot at me. Which seemed like a good game at the time. And we played the new game that I had just come up with called Shoot at Me. Which, if I would have moved fast enough, would have been fine, but I didn't move fast enough, and a 1 in a million chance shot out my right eye. I tell you that story because I've made a lot of choices in my life in the moment that would affect the rest of my life because I wanted to be cool or present or funny or the guy that drank the bong water from 62 people smoking the marijuana. I know you're making faces like you never did anything, young man. Yeah. He's like, ugh. I asked for extra worms and to kill, whatever it is, to be in the moment so that someone would notice me. And when I lost my eye that day, I never told anybody that Kevin did it. And for years, I want to just tell you the blessing of Alcoholics Anonymous. For years, I resented Kevin. For years, matter of fact, I would even use the word hate Kevin. You're going to do something tomorrow. I'm going to be in a step series. I'm going to be in your steps tomorrow, and some of the men are going to be this. I highly recommend, if you're in steps right now and you're working steps, go to the workshops. Don't come here as a spectator. Come here as a participant. Your recovery is going to take work. You're not going to get it by osmosis. Osmosis is the chemical process of you sitting in the chair and stuff coming up through your ass. And while I was doing my 4th step, and I was writing down Kevin's name, and every time I write Kevin, I'd write it down like this. And my sponsor says, let's go all the way across to where you were wrong. Let's do the whole thing. What's up with Kevin? Kevin shot me. Tell me more about it. He shot me. Where were you wrong? Where was I wrong? The man shot me. I want you to write down what happened. I was 12, he was 13. He wasn't a man. It was my gun, my backyard, my idea. At that moment, in my 5th step, the scales fell from my eyes, and I realized it was 100% my fault. I had been holding this boy hostage for 30 years. I had made a story up that wasn't true. I was drinking poison and expecting another boy to be sick from it. A boy that was probably already sick from it because he knows what he did out of being a 12 and 13-year-old. And I had the opportunity last summer to go back because as I was doing one of my talks, I was doing a talk, and a woman came up to me afterwards and she said, I want you to know I'm best friends with Kevin's wife in New York. And I said, could you put me in touch with Kevin? And last summer I went back to Long Island and I took that man and I said, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I disliked you for years for something that I had done to you. Please forgive me. That's what the program of Alcoholics Anonymous will do. It'll switch your thinking. You go from self-centered, you go from victim. By the way, victims don't recover. And I could be a professional victim. I can speak victimese. I'm fluent. Oi, ooh, ah. And the moment I went and I made amends to that man, I was free. By the way, I want you to know I was free 30 years ago. I was free 24 years ago when I did the fifth step. The fifth step will free you. But I was really free when I was able to go back and make amends personally through the ninth step. And that's what's so amazing about the steps. We're not going to go through all the steps tonight, of course, but I just want to highlight that the steps are not something that you get done. The steps are something that you do. I'm sure Ron, that announced me tonight, is currently working the steps. I know he is. I know a little bit about his personal life. We spent some time on the phone. He tells me what he does on a daily basis. I know how he works the 12th step. That's just one of the steps I know about. So now I'm a kid that stays out of school for 1 year. I'm a kid that everyone's pointing at. Look at the kid, what happened to him. The mothers are pointing at. Remember what I told you, don't play with guns. So I have all the attention in the wrong areas. And then, of course, during that time, I was given a lot of drugs. That did not make me a drug addict. But I liked them. And I liked the way they made me feel. And my story is not going to be a story that's going to be about pure alcohol, because I'm not a pure alcoholic. But I'm not going to go into drugs here, of course not, out of respect for Alcoholics Anonymous. But I want you to know, if part of my story I say that I was rolled up in a carpet in the middle of the floor because I thought the police were going to rush in at any time, and I heard them coming in, and I thought rolling myself up in a carpet was a great hiding place, that's not because of scotch. If I say I was peeping out of a peephole in a hotel room for 3.5 days with one eye, it's not because of Jim Beam. So you're going to have to fill in the blanks. I'm not saying I'm going there. I'm just saying if I said that, you'd know. So here I am, I'm really a drug addict that drinks. And I don't turn into a real full-blown drinking alcoholic until later on. But my first entry into a substance is drugs. And I just have to be honest, our stories disclose in a general way what it used to be like, what it's like, and what it's like now. And if I make up stuff, it's inauthentic. I come to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous because the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous in the first 164 pages have the answer to all my problems today. It points me to God. God then points me back to Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous points me to God. It's a perfect loop. I never have to leave anything. I'm totally at home here. It's not the process of removing things. It's not the process of adding anything. It's the process of removing things that separates me between my Creator, God. And he already has a name. I don't have to say I choose to call him. He already has a name. It's like if you choose to call me Steve, great, that was my name. Like, hey, this is Steve. I choose to call him Steve. Yeah, I already had a name. Thank you. It was already given to me. Thank you for choosing that. But I don't know that God is the answer to my problems because I'm using everything else on planet Earth as an auxiliary to what my God-sized hole is telling me what I need, but I'm shoving everything else in the God-sized hole. And you know exactly what I mean. The thing that we should be going to first is the thing that we go to last, which is the Creator of the universe, which doesn't make sense. But we are alcoholics. We're defiant by nature. I have one of the guys in my house. You see this? You have You had a house meeting tonight? It's serious business. Did you go to your house meeting? Because if you didn't, they know. They know. And one of the guys, bless his soul, he refused to put on his name tag. I watched him. One of the rules was, you gotta wear your name tag. He takes out the name tag. Shows everyone he's got the name tag. Puts it back in the pocket. That's who we are. We are defiant name tag in the pocket people. I get to college and I certainly do not have the money that I need to be pursuing the type of alcoholism that I'm pursuing. I'm a destination waiter at one of those resorts that you see on TV like Dirty Dancing, where the people go there all during the week and they have the same waiter. You may not, this crew knows who Dirty Dancing is. You guys look it up on YouTube. And so I'm a destination waiter. I work with the same families all week. At the end of the week, they give you an envelope. And the envelope is never enough to cover my debts from the previous 7 days of having to work late night shifts, having to work all the different shifts, having to take alcohol all different ways, having to take powdered alcohol, smoking alcohol, all that stuff. I never have enough money to the end of the week. And what happens is my uncle, who's a very well-known doctor in Fort Lauderdale, amazing guy, brilliant, 42 years old, he drives a Jaguar, 40 years ago, drives a Jaguar when nobody had a Jaguar, has a house on the water, speaks fluent Italian, and became a doctor, but went to Italy to become a doctor and didn't speak a word of Italian. He's studying to be a doctor in Italian while learning Italian. I failed English in America. There's a big difference. And he dies on the bottom of a swimming pool. I get the call when I'm a junior in college. I get the call, my Uncle JJ, the man that I just thought was untouchable, dies alcoholic death on the bottom of a swimming pool. Because alcoholism doesn't care how bright you are and brilliant you are, or your pedigree, or where you come from, park bench to park place. It doesn't, alcohol doesn't care. Alcohol is the rapacious creditor. What is a rapacious? It's a creditor that does not give up until it destroys you and your family, your health, your reputation, your teeth. Everything that goes on in your life, alcohol wants to take it from you and make a mockery out of you. My uncle dies on the bottom of a swimming pool with $1 million in the bank. Alone. He never found Alcoholics Anonymous. I always think, wouldn't it be amazing if I could be doing this with him today? 42 years old. And I inherit the money. Not $1 million, but I inherit some of the money. A good amount. Enough while you're in college and you have an alcohol problem to now fund the alcohol problem. And things get bad fast. You know, I don't know if you've seen the movie New Jack City or Less Than Zero, any of that stuff, but my life goes down until I'm in school trying to pass tests and I'm shot out of the back end of a cannon. And I can't stop. You know, it's fun, and then it's fun with problems, and then it's just problems, and then it's suicidal thoughts, and maybe even taking me, and that's where I'm at now. And then I run out of money. And then it becomes a serious, even now it's stepped up into a higher problem. I don't know if that's ever happened to you. Like, it's problems, but you got money, you still got tomorrow, and then the money runs out, and you haven't figured out there's a lower floor for pawning things yet, and I'm out of money. And so I go home to mom and dad. I'm 20. And I'm broke. And I tell them I have a terrible problem. And we don't know anyone that ever went to treatment. We knew one person. Because the old timers in here will tell you there wasn't treatment centers like now, where it's like a fourth option, you know, like the army, job, college, treatment. It wasn't the fourth option. You know, it wasn't like that back then. It was like rare. You knew someone that went to Betty Ford, someone that went to Hanley Hazelden, another person that went somewhere, but it's not like now where a lot of you guys went to treatment, and so did I. And they send me, they put in a VHS movie in the house and tell me this is where you're going. And they put in Clean and Sober with Michael Keaton. VHS was a tape back in the day. And I'm watching the movie. And I'm drinking while I'm watching the movie because my parents thought that was fine because we didn't understand about alcoholism. So that They let people come over and visit me. It was like a sick house. I wasn't allowed out because I was waiting to go to treatment, but people could bring in booze. So like kind of like visiting hours before treatment. And I watched the movie and I was like, I could do this. There's like a lake and there's like dating and you do some steps and drink some milkshakes. And I'm like, I could do treatment. And so I pack for treatment because of the movie. But the movie is like in Georgia on a lake. And they sent me to Minnesota on February 7th of 1989. And that was like the year that like the whole Minnesota froze like negative 72 degrees. And I show up in a guinea tee, like with 5 gold chains, like, yo, the kid is here. You know, like in my balloon muscle pants, like I was woefully underdressed. And it's literally so cold out that no one speaks in that type of cold. I don't know if anybody's here from that area, but you just nod because you have to save your very breath for living. And they whisk me off to the treatment center. And I get in the treatment center and I see the steps for the first time. And it says step 1, we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives have become unmanageable. They didn't specifically had that in the movie. In the movie, they had the 4th step and the 5th step. And it was the first time I'd seen the word alcohol in the steps. And I wasn't there for alcohol. I was there for one substance and one substance only. I had a $35,000 check from my dad. My dad's name carried a lot of weight and depth in the Northeast. My dad was part of a professional gambling syndicate. You do the math, you figure it out in your own head exactly what I'm talking about. And when I said to the people, I go, I'm not here not to drink. I'm only here for this one substance and this one substance only. And I have a $35,000 check from Stan Boyarsky. And I say it to him just like that. And apparently they were not impressed. They must not have heard of my dad. And they said to me, well, you could leave. And I go, well, I am going to leave. I don't know if you've ever tried that with the treatment centers. It depends on where you're at. But nobody leaves treatment in Minnesota in the winter at night. No one. I didn't know that. So I go to pick up my 3-piece matching Gucci luggage and I try to leave. But there's a snowdrift in front of the door like Fargo and no one's going anywhere. And I say, and I'm going to pause the story for a second. Doesn't matter why you're here. A friend said to me today, I had to come because it's mandatory. Great. You may be here because your recovery house brought you. Great. You may be here because your wife mandated. Great. You may be here because you're on an ankle monitor. Great. I stayed in Alcoholics Anonymous because it was too cold to go outside in a t-shirt. Doesn't matter. You're already here. You never have to drink again for the rest of your life, one day at a time, even if you want to. That's how I got into AA. I got into AA because there were steps on the wall. Nobody could leave. I was in undergarments, and I stayed till spring. By the time I could leave, I already had 3 months. So I'm like, I might as well stay. I'm sober. It doesn't matter. God will meet you exactly where you're at. You want to become you want to become an old timer? Of course, it's great to become an old timer. How do you do that? One day at a time. You don't drink. You seek God. You clean house. You help others. You get involved in service. And one day at a time, you will stay sober. But not because the goal is sober. The goal is a relationship with God that produces sober. I was already miserable without God sober. I was 12 years old. I had 12 years of no drinking, and I was a mental patient at 12 years old. Sobriety will never cure my mental illness. And I don't know what type of alcoholic you have, and I don't know that you are, and I don't know what type of mental illness you have, but sobriety is not a cure to my mental illness. Working the 12 steps to build a foundation, to have a relationship with God is the only thing that's ever cured my mental illness. It's the only thing that makes me happy, joy. This makes me happy, joyous, and free. Meeting new people makes me happy, joyous, and free. Working the steps with people makes me happy. Reading the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I never think about my own problems. My one eye, right now I got a bad knee. I had a cough on my way in here, which seems to be gone. My shoulder hurts. I never think of any of that when I'm reading the big book with somebody. One of the guys came into the house tonight. The house is very serious. I don't know, I told you that already. Guy came in. He's like, I'm working on my defects. I go, what do you mean? He goes, I'm getting those defects going. I go, explain to me what you're talking about. Because I knew we were going to have a juicy conversation. The moment he said it was him and his defects, I knew where this was going. I love it. I'm like, tell me the 6th step. He leaves God totally out of the 6th step. He says another step, maybe from NA, I don't know. I go, where'd you get that? Entirely ready to have me take away my defects? No. You're never gonna take away your defects. You are a defect. I said, put God in that sentence. Entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character and watch what happens. That's when you're going to have a joyous life. That's when you're going to be getting out of your own way. And he laughed and we laughed. And I hope he's here tonight. What just a great young man that I met today. And so I'm 3 or 4 months sober. I get into Alcoholics Anonymous. Minneapolis, Minnesota is a great place for AA, old-time AA. I don't know if you've ever been there, the 2218 Club, one of the oldest clubhouses in the United States. Clancy started a meeting out in, may God rest his soul, in Los Angeles. I've had the pleasure of being with him, and that's called the Pacific Group. And then in Minnesota, it's called the Central Pacific Group. And in New York, it's called the Atlantic Group. And I know you have groups down here like that because I heard someone introduce themselves as Recovered. Find yourself a real group. If your group is talking about nonsense and problems and hanging in there, if the guy keeps talking about hanging in there, or the guy's talking about how happy, joyous, and free he is and he keeps picking up, you need to change your circles. There's nothing wrong with Alcoholics Anonymous. It's the meeting you're going to. There's amazing meetings out there. And it's your job to seek it. The big book says faith without works is dead, which means you're going to need to put in some work to find the good groups. One of my guys, one of the people that I know said to me, I'm not going back to AA. It doesn't work. Bad experiences. Every meeting I go to is terrible. I go, you know what? I have that experience every time I go to the dentist. I hate going to the dentist. The dentist puts your hand in your mouth and creates blood, and then it's stuff going all over the place. You got to keep your jaw open all the time, and then they ask for money. But I don't just come out there going, you know what? I'm never going back to a dentist again. Go find yourself a dentist you like, and go find yourself a meeting that's filling up your spirit, because Alcoholics Anonymous is a perfect program for imperfect people. I mean, just look at this little slice of the pie of the United States. There's right now, during this time, 7 o'clock in the evening, across the United, let's just do Georgia. 7 o'clock across Georgia. 8 o'clock across Georgia. Every meeting in Georgia, serenity prayer. Thousands of meetings in Georgia, serenity prayer. Thousands of meetings on the East Coast, 8 o'clock, serenity prayer. Same time. Central time, 7 o'clock, Mountain time, 6 o'clock, Pacific time, 5 o'clock, all across just the United States. Now times that by across the world at the same time. Millions of alcoholics are praying the serenity prayer. Give God a round of applause with that. If you're going to a meeting that's just talking about hanging in there, shame on you. Go to one of the solution-based meetings. Anyway, I relapsed. I got 18 months. I'm dating girls. I'm in both programs. I think both. I'm in NA, AA, whatever A. I'm in your. It was horrible. I think AA is a big dating program. I don't work the steps. I relapse. I'm now 24. I crawl into Alcoholics Anonymous, humble and willing to do whatever it takes for 3 years. I mean, you guys were brilliant for 3 years. And then around 3 years, I'm like 28. I'm taking steroids. I got a triple black Mustang Cobra, got a hot girlfriend, full head of hair, white teeth, giant muscles. And I'm like, this program is for stupid people. And I stopped practicing the principles in any of my affairs. And it took 4 more years of not working the program to get so spiritually sick that I needed a drink. And I see a girl, and I'm like filling this God-sized hole with everything that I can: the steroids, the working out, money, girls, car, and then I finally see the girl. And I'm like, if I could just get that girl, then maybe I could fix myself. I don't know I'm in relapse for 3 years because I'm sober. And I'm 28 and I'm sober years, and I don't realize I have full-blown alcoholism. But I see this girl, that true story, she works in a circus, and she's in the circus, and she's on an elephant. And at my job, I know it sounds like I made that up, but I didn't. And at my work, there's a full-blown circus with lions and elephants, and she's an elephant rider. And beautiful, and from Colombia, and long brown hair, and one of those feather headdresses. And I say, if I can get that girl, that's gonna fix everything. And I marry her, like after a long pursuit. Borderline stalking, but she marries me. And we have a big AA wedding. And this is how I didn't know that alcoholism, I was full-blown alcoholic, and she didn't know. She married sober Steve, and she got drunk Steve. The man of her dreams, the man she'd been waiting for. She came from Colombia to marry Stevie B, Relapse Steve. That was my nickname in AA. After 7 years, I relapsed, and for 2 years, my nickname was Relapse Steve. And it was horrible. And I broke her heart. And I broke her family's heart. And I broke my parents' heart. Imagine your son is 7 years sober from the age of 24 to 31. He finally gets married. He finally has a business. He finally gets a house. And then I just drink it all away. And the relapse happened 3 to 4 years before I actually picked up the drink. Because if you're not working, actively working a program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I mean actively working, the Big Book says when Carl Jung was talking to Roland Hazard, the Big Book says that Carl Jung, the chief psychiatrist of that time, said here and there, once in a while, there has been shown that if someone has an entire psychic change, that once in a while, a person can recover. That just tells you how rare it is to recover. It's not, listen, to get 50 years is rare. I don't want to upset you. Please don't get upset by this statement I'm about to tell you. You're not a success story if you get 3 years and you go out. It's not a success if you get 5 years and die. You're not a great story if you get 7 years and you destroy your family. It's not a blessing if you get 8 years and you go to prison. None of those are success stories. It seems like a success story because while you're in it, we're like, oh, it's better than using, but is it really? You build up all this trust. Everyone counts on you. You're chairing meetings. They give you the keys to the church. And then you take back your own will and you destroy everything. It takes you 10 years to build trust and 60 seconds to destroy it. I needed to say it to you like that because my wife was destroyed. My mother was destroyed. And they put me in the Lord. They put me in detox after treatment center or halfway house, and none of it worked. You know, I remember that someone had told me that it's easier to stay sober than to get sober. But I just thought that was one of the cliches that you guys come up with. Time takes time. Easy does it. One day at a time. Turn it over. Well, I want to tell you something. This is a fact. It is so much easier to stay sober than it is to get sober. I gave that 7 years away, and 2 years killed me. Two suicide attempts, destroyed health. Nobody could touch my skin. I had went out on drugs that you guys were creating in bathtubs from stuff that you bought at Home Depot. And a 34-year-old is not supposed to be in a club like this for 12 hours. It's not natural. I still have terrible knee problems. And while I'm in my final detox, I get this great idea to call my first sponsor, Jerry Bear from Minneapolis, who was living in San Francisco in the Marin County area. And I call up Jerry and I tell him, Jerry, you're not going to believe this. I relapsed. And he says, shocking. I go, I know, it's shocking. He goes, we were expecting this since you were 2 years sober. He said, well, this is what I want you to do. I want you to get down on your knees in the detox. And I want you to start praying in the detox today. And you're going to ask God to keep you clean and sober in the detox. Because if I invited you over my house, Stevie, and you came to my house and you came to dinner at my house and you sat down at the table and you started grabbing the food and you didn't say please, and then you stood up from the table and you left the house and you didn't say thank you, do you think I'd ever invite you back again to my house? And I said, of course not. He said, so why do you think you could be in God's world one day without asking for the gift of sobriety and saying, please for the gift of sobriety, and thanking God for the gift of sobriety at the end of the day? He said that the disease of alcoholism is not like a flat-footed cop that walks around the streets of New York with a donut in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other. The disease of alcoholism is like a Secret Service agent that goes in and out of parties unnoticed, that speaks 5 different languages, that knows how to use every weapon in the arsenal. And if you have any respect for your sobriety, you better have that much more respect for the disease of alcoholism. And I was like, wow, I've been treating the disease of alcoholism like it was a little tiny kitty cat. Dee, 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 dee. When it was really a lion waiting to prowl and devour me and my family. And I did very many things to get so close to the line, but then very, very easily jumped over the line. And I started praying in that detox. On my knees in the morning, and I started praying at night. And some of you guys are already lost. I see you sleeping there. Listen, but some of you guys are getting it. We're talking about a life and death decision. You're here today. You could be praying on your knees today. You could be thanking God today. You could be changing the way you do things today. You can open up tomorrow morning and open up the 24-hour-a-day book tomorrow morning. You could do things differently. You can open up As Bill Sees It. You don't have to do the things you've been doing that aren't working. You don't have to carry them into your future. Shed the things that are not working in order to get the things that will. But about 30 days clean and sober, and I'm living in a halfway house, and I'm showering and shaving, and they say, well, how did you get to a halfway house? Didn't you just own a house? I was shocked myself. I was shocked myself. My wife served me with something called a restraining order, which says you can't come back to your house. You need to go back to someone else's house, and we'll call that a halfway house. Which I was not happy about because I had owned a full house the month earlier. I don't know if you heard about that. So now I'm living with men I'm not related to. And I come up with this idea that I'm going to get high one more time. I'm going to go on a run one more time, but not a run, more like a walk. And I'm going to do it like during the hours while everyone's out looking for jobs. And by the time everyone comes back, I'll have the bed made, I'll go to a bar, I'll brush my teeth, everything will be fine. And then when I go to get my year, I'll just tell everybody, hey, 11 months ago, I used one time. Because that's some type of junkie superpower. We come up with these unbelievable ideas. But I don't have any money. And I really respect you guys that go on runs with no money. I don't know how you do that plan. Like you go on runs with no money. That's some real serious planning right there. So I call up my wife who has a restraining order against me. And she says, what? And I say, sweetheart, could I get $199? And she says, hold on. And she calls her sponsor. It turns out she joined a program called Al-Anon. Apparently you heard of it. And her sponsor says to give me the money. I know, I think it's against the rules myself. And they give me $199 on a money card. And I think I got it. And I go to get high. And I go to get drunk. But I know I have to, I asked for the $199 for a cell phone so that I could call my sponsor who lives in, I had the whole thing mapped out beautifully. Before ChatGPT, there was me. And I run to the cell phone store because I know I have to buy that cell phone because I have to call her and I have to call the owner of the halfway house and I have to tell everybody everything's fine and I'm going to a meeting and I have the whole thing worked out and I say to the guy behind the counter, but I just got to remind you something. I had just prayed. I had just asked God to keep me clean and sober. You see, the second step is not something that you only get to do with your sponsor or what you get to do with your treatment center. The second step is actually a real deal thing. You do something different and God gives you a different result. And then you come to believe that there's a power greater than yourself that can actually restore you to sanity. And I had gotten off my knees. And when I got off my knees, even though I had every desire in my heart to stay sober, I had taken back my own will as soon as my knees got 45 degrees. But God didn't care. When I got to the Sprint store, which is a phone company, and I said to the guy behind I don't know if you know. I said to the guy behind the counter, I need to have the cheapest cell phone in here, and I need to be out of here in 10 minutes. The guy behind the counter said, Stevie B, I saw you yesterday at the Victory AA meeting. Welcome back. And God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. And then 11 months later, my wife asked me to come back and live in that house. And I was in that house. I left the halfway house. I went and lived in the house. And my wife was making food downstairs, eggs and coffee and bacon, which are very different smells from a halfway house, I just want to tell you. And I come up with this idea to turn the mattress over. And when I go to turn the mattress over, there's my stash. But I had just gotten up off my knees. And for the first time in my life, I had the power to be able to say no because it wasn't my power, it was God's power. And I know some of these things may sound like I'm trying to do it for dramatic sake, but it happened just like this. If you go back over how it was like for you and then what had happened and then what it's like, you're going to have the same dramatic stories. You're either one or two things. You're either taking credit for all the dramatic stories or you're giving the credit where the credit is due, the creator of the universe. That's your choice. I choose to see that I had no power, then I had power. I couldn't stop, then I could stop. I cried out to God, then he did show up. I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. He did. Made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. He did. Did a searching and fearless moral inventory, which is what the workshops are tomorrow morning, so that I could get all the garbage out of my body so that I didn't have to walk around in meetings being full of poop, and I could share it with somebody else and leave it with that person, and that person could take that, and then I could ask God to remove my defects of character. It all works. The steps are not some crazy thing that only certain people that are come from the mountain can do. It's a working way of life. And I'm sober a year, and my wife takes me to church, and I don't go to church. I'm not a church person. But she becomes a church person. Those Al-Anon people are brainwashers. And she says, if you want to come back and stay home, you're going to come to church with me. And I say, I'll do whatever it takes not to go back to the halfway house. And I go to church, and I meet the God that Bill W. tells us about. This is the God of our ancestors. And I have a spiritual experience. And I've never been the same. And I start taking meetings into treatment centers. And I start telling people that it's okay to believe in God. You don't have to be embarrassed. Men of faith have courage. All men of faith have courage. And I start going into treatment centers. And I start telling people in treatment centers that it's okay to have faith. And it's okay to have courage. And it's okay to go to church. And it's okay to go to temple as long as you don't leave AA. And I start doing that message. And I take a meeting into a treatment center where that young man is in the 12th row over there. His name is Joshua. And he's in one of those treatment centers. But I'm about 11 years sober and we want to have a baby. And we try to have a baby and we can't have a baby. And we try and we try and we try and we go to a clinic and we get in vitro fertilization and we pay all the money for that and we can't do that. It fails. And then we hire a surrogate. I don't know if you know what a surrogate is. A surrogate, that's the person's job to give you a baby. That always works. It didn't work. And then we go down to Colombia where my wife is from and we get eggs donated from one of her family members, eggs for the baby, and it doesn't work. Nothing works. And then we get pregnant after 5 years. And we have the baby room built and our life is amazing and you can't say anything that's not incredible to me, and life is good and everything is good, and I'm taking meetings into treatment centers and I'm 11 years sober at this time, sorry, and I'm just so grateful to you guys. And the baby doesn't make it. And I'm not prepared. I'm not prepared because I'm doing everything you guys told me to do, and somehow in my mind, I thought you said if I do everything that I'm supposed to do, that I would not have any problems, which is not what you told me. It's something I made up. It's actually what you told me is that God will give me the strength to get through it. Not that he wouldn't give me more than I can handle, because I have more than I can handle most of the time. And we have a baby room built with no baby. And I don't know how to handle it. And I don't know where to go. So I go to my home group and I talk to people and they give me the answers that you guys give me. Seek first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, and everything will be added to you. It's going to be, you'll get through this. And I seek the people in AA, and I take a meeting into one of the treatment centers that night when we lost the baby. And there's a group of people inside that treatment center, and they see me in the parking lot crying and praying. I don't know if anybody saw us praying tonight before the meeting. I prayed with matter of fact, all my Joshuas in one row. Joshua that invited me here, Joshua that's going to speak on Sunday morning. By the way, I know that sometimes you guys leave on Sunday mornings. Don't leave this Sunday morning. You want to hear this speaker. He's unbelievable. You got to hear Cody Smith from Georgia. Well, you are in Georgia. He's unbelievable. And they see me in the parking lot crying, they see me in the parking lot praying, and I go into the meeting, and that woman, her name is Jana, and she still talks about it today, 18 years later. She said she never saw anything like it. A person could come there with grief and suffering and still bring a meeting in, because you don't give up your service just because life gets real. And my wife, even though she lost the baby that day, was across town in the Al-Anon meeting. And then so we go in an adoption agency, and this is where the story ends. But really begins. It ends and begins in this story. Not my sobriety, because my sobriety is already going for 11 years, and I'm happy in every area except this one area. We don't know how to process the grief. And so we go to an adoption agency, and we get all the papers for the adoption agency. And then we get a call one day from the adoption agency, and the man, Joe, says to my wife, "A man like your husband will never be able to adopt in the state of Florida." And my wife says, "Why do you say that?" He said, "Ask your husband." I was such an upstanding member of Alcoholics Anonymous in my first sobriety that driving out of a meeting of the men's group, I went and picked up a prostitute after the meeting, which turned out to be a police officer. I don't know if they have those laws here, but it's not good in Florida. And so I can't adopt in the state of Florida. But I want you to know something. When God has already ordained something, don't worry about what the state of Georgia says. Don't worry about what the state of Florida says. There's people driving vans for treatment centers today that have like 5 DWIs. They've been told by the judge, you will never drive again. Then somehow their records get lost and they're driving. Your therapists that are helping you get through all the different places, most of them are axe murderers. I know they tell you they went to all that schooling, but it was all in prison. Don't worry. If God has a plan for you, man cannot shut that door. The state of Florida said you will absolutely not be able to have a baby. We called a man that was in our home group. We said, do you know anything that we could do? He's turned us on to this Jewish woman by the name of Mindy. I tell you the reason you said the word Jewish only because by now my wife and I are like over-the-top Christians. We like got sprinkler system with holy water type Christians, you know. We got giant picture on the wall Christians. We got bumper stickers. We got St. Francis outside the front, you know, the whole thing. And we know that Mindy is going to be coming down from Boca, and she's the one that's going to be giving us the home study. And I say to Sandy, in my innocence, I said, sweetheart, let's just take giant Jesus down from the wall. Just for the hour. Don't wear any t-shirts. Let's turn St. Francis the other way, and let's just act normal. And my wife says, we're not going to pretend who we're not. If God wants us to have a baby, we will. And just a couple months later, we're looking at our son. And he's on his first day of life. And we met none of the qualifications that the mom was looking for. But she picked us. And she says, what would you like to name your son? And we're at a state we've never been to, up by California, right by Canada. We've never been in that area. She said, what would you like to name your son? We say, Joshua. She said, why Joshua? We said, because in the Bible, Joshua 24:15 says, as for me and my house, we choose to serve the Lord. And listen to this. She says, well, I'm not religious, which is fine. And I say to her, it just means our son's going to grow up in a godly home. And he has. And I say that's where the story ends and where the story begins, because every one of us have a story that's continuing right now. Like when you go back to your groups on Monday, there's a story that you're going to have about this weekend that you didn't have before this weekend. Your how it was doesn't need to be always about 10 years ago or 5 years ago or how the worst. Your how it was could be about you came into this retreat, this conference with a closed mind to things about God, and by the time you left, you have an open mind about things about God. If you're not growing, you're going. We took that beautiful baby home with us. And God showed off 9 months later. I'm going to tell you the story. I know you probably think we didn't have another baby. It's not that. But our son sprouted the most amazing red hair. Like you. And he has the most amazing little button nose and the most amazing freckles and the whitest skin you've ever seen. Because we went to the part of the country where they make the whitest babies. And I tell you that because he looks exactly like my mom. God just put a cherry on the sundae and said, listen, I just want to let you know. I know you think it's haphazard that you found that baby up by Canada, but it wasn't. I brought you there. That's your son. Your son is named Joshua. He's going to look exactly like your mom. He's going to go to meetings with you. He's going to go to church with you. He's going to hate hearing his name every single time you speak. He's going to recoil from you like a hot flame. He's going to can't stand every time you mention him. And I want you to keep mentioning him. Because I'll tell you what, I gave you a new life. Big Book says we were reborn. If you're in here and you're just hanging in there and you're just staying sober, I want you to know that there's a buffet in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's going to be your choice. The people that are just hanging in there, they got squishy faces. You see them at meetings. How you hanging in there. They have the same choice to the buffet. They chose to stop at crouton. They get their crouton. They're eating their crouton. Let me tell you something. Ron, that's not a crouton eater. That guy's going all through the buffet. The joy in his heart, the way when he chairs a meeting, the way that he interviewed me to be here in this process, that's a man that loves this. 50 plus years, probably loves everything about it. That's a man that has figured this out, that this is not just about staying sober. This is about having a life beyond your wildest dreams. You want to be a crouton eater? Good, fine. Take your crouton, go back to your seat with your knife and your fork. You eat that crouton. Arr. I'm going across the buffet. I believe what you said. I believe that you said I can have all things through God who strengthens me. I believe that you said I could have a new life. I believe you, but the big book says that we were reborn. I'm a happy camper. I'm grateful to you guys. God bless you, and I look forward to seeing you this weekend.